And you're welcome back to Breakfast Extra. We continue with our second big story for today. It's the battle between Nigeria's labor unions and economic policies, and once again is at a boiling point. This time over the proposed 50% hike in telecom tariffs. The Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, has declared a nationwide protest against the increase, arguing that it will further burden struggling Nigerians already grappling with inflation and rising living costs. While the government and telecom operators cite operational costs and currency fluctuations as justification for the hike, labor leaders insist that such an increase is unjustifiable, calling it yet another attack on the people's purchasing power. Now, this standoff has triggered a wave of mixed reactions, while workers and consumer rights groups rally behind the NLC's position. Others, including the National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, and telecom workers' unions, have voiced opposition to the planned protest, calling for dialogue instead. It's always dialogue.
Well, to break this down, we're joined by, an expert here, Ireoluwa Oguntuase, a labor expert, and of course he'll be giving us details as to how we will manage or navigate around these called for protests by the NLC. Ireoluwa, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Great. So, labor movements has historically fought against these kinds of price hikes. How is this one any different? Except, let's also note that this is a commodity that every single person, every single business relies upon. So how is the labor intending to make sure that this struggle, this protest actually holds ground and creates effect?
Okay, so talking about the issue of protest, I think this is not the right time to go on protest, and I'll tell you why. I think this is the right time to just sit back and let all parties consider their different interests and let all different or conflicting interests be harmonized. Now, what are the issues in this? The issue is very simple. The telecom operators want to increase tariff, and the federal government has approved 50% increase in telecommunications tariff. Now, before then, the operators were asking for 100%. I think the issue here that probably NLC is saying they want to protest is that NLC was not put in the know from the beginning, ab initio. And I think that is where I'll be faulting both the federal government and the telecom operators. Because when we talk about increase, and in the event, in the situation like rightly we're saying now that the increase is going to affect everybody, including employees of labor, that the Nigerian Labour Congress are seeking to protect their interests, given the fact that they're a general union, then it would have behoved on the principal stakeholder, now the telecom operators or the federal government through the Nigerian Communications Commission, to have also communicated to the Nigerian Labour Congress beforehand. They will sit down. The telecom operators will be well represented, and they will do what is called show walking. So when I say show walkings, it's just a colloquial term to justify the increase. Where were you before? Where are you now? If the increase is not done, what is the implication that it will be having for you, for the telecommunication company as a group, for each of the telecommunications operators as a company, and the consequential effect of it? Because I tell you, possibly, I'm not speaking for the telecom operators, but they may come out and say that if this increase is not done, there is a very high likelihood that their companies will fold up. In that situation, that means that their employees would also be thrown into the labor market. If that happens, it's the same Nigerian Labour Congress that would also come out and say they want to protest. So I think along the line, there must have been a misunderstanding, and it is not too late. They can still go back to the drawing board, sit down instead of Nigerian Labour Congress to say that they want to protest.
Right. Now, just to add to this conversation, to make it more rounded, we're joined by the NLC Lagos State Council Chairman. It's none other than Mrs. Agnes Sessi. Mrs. Agnes Sessi, many thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us. Good morning to you, and a happy Sunday. Now, I want to ask you, the NLC has insisted on a protest, despite some oppositions, and even the NANS and Telecom Workers Group and Rights Group saying, no, there's no need for a protest. It's high time that there's a hike. What is the union's non-negotiable stance on this issue?
Thank you very much. And I want to use this opportunity to greet all Nigerians and to tell us that this is a situation and this is a critical time in our lives in Nigeria, that we need Nigerians to unite with Labour to come out on February 4th to show our displeasure to this hike in the tariff of telecommunication. If you have to see, virtually everyone in Nigeria who is of age, and even those ones that are the younger ones, they still go around with the mobile phones, and that means that we have a huge subscribers, both for calls and also on data. It means before now that these telecommunication companies are talking about, loss, they were, posting huge profits in that area. And it's so disheartening that if you want to make an increase, should it not be a gradual process? Why should you jump to 50% at once? And what Nigeria Labour Congress is saying is that we are, we are the voice for the voiceless. We are now fighting for Nigerians, since those who are supposed to, fight for Nigerians have abdicated their responsibilities. If they have not abdicated their responsibilities, we will not see escalation in the prices of goods and services everywhere. We have been stiffed. We have been, everywhere is so tightened, and Nigerians can no longer breathe. That is why we are showing our displeasure. And this is just a warning protest. It's not the one that we are going to, shut down the whole economy. This one is still a warning protest. I will want to use this medium to tell the government that it will take nothing away from you to listen to Nigerians and the stakeholders. Mm-hmm. Listen to us. We are the voices. We are the voice for the voiceless. We represent the Nigerian people.
All right.
And we are saying it that hike in the tariff of telecoms is on the high side. It's not affordable to the ordinary and the poor masses and common man. We are not rich. We are just managing. Even the new minimum wage is not even enough to take us anywhere.
Now,
it's not a living wage, it's a starvation wage. So those who are rich, we are not talking about them. But this time, we are talking about the majority of Nigerians who can no longer afford this kind of situation in the country.
All right, Mr. Sessi, now, I hear you there on the call for the protest and exactly when it's supposed to happen now. But however, what is the aim of the protest? Who exactly is it targeted at? Is it targeted at the Nigerian government, or is it targeted at the telecom operators? These are two different people to target this protest to. Now, if you're targeting the telecoms, you're asking them to totally just reverse the hike from 50% to back what it was. If you're targeting the government, then you're asking them to perhaps maybe change certain policies that will make doing business in Nigeria easier for the telecoms to enable us have affordable tariffs. So which exactly is it? What is the NLC's aim for this protest? Is it at the telcos, or is it at the Nigerian government?
Thank you very much. We are targeting the two actors in this illegal situation. We term it as illegal because our voices have to count. Nigerians should not be taken for a ride. Government is acting on our behalf, right? They are, and this is a democratic dispensation. So if truly you are leading us by democratic, you have to also hear our voice. It should be a government of inclusion. That's what we are saying. We are also critical stakeholder in ensuring that the Nigeria, survives and Nigeria run as it should be. So if you cannot shave our head at our back, that's what we are saying. And if you want to bring about some policies, you need to consult widely. You need to take survey. You need to, check some data. How many Nigerians are poor? How many can afford if you bring about 20%, 10%, 50%? We are saying it that we cannot afford that 50%. And let us say it that even the telecommunication companies, they are also saying it that the reason why they are increasing is because of the tax hike from government to the telecommunication companies. The government has already increased the taxation or the taxes to the telecommunication. So it's in response to the hike in the tax from the telecommunication company. And they are now passing the buck onto the consumers. So any decision of the government, any government policies, it will still come back to the consumer. And this is it's having its negative toll. It's going to be negative on the poor masses. And that is why we are saying it that enough of all these shenanigans, imperialist and neo-colonialist scripts that our leaders are writing and trying to force down our throats. We are going to reject it. It's no longer going to continue this way. Before now, we have seen the escalation in the prices of virtually everything in this country. The goods that we buy, food, are we talking about? The food that we eat, everything has gone up. Last December, we bought just a bulb of onions for 1,000 naira. How do we survive with that? 1,000 naira for a bulb of onions. And are we talking about meat? Are we talking about fish? Are we talking everything? The rights and the privileges in food has been taken off from Nigerians. Many people can no longer feed very well. The 3 square meal is no longer affordable. Are we talking about transportation that has escalated? Are we talking about rent and accommodation? Are we talking about education? Are we talking about the health sector? Many people can no longer afford their medications. They have health issues. There are underground health issues, and they can no longer afford their medications they have passed on.
All right.
So, and we look at it that the government are supposed to bail us out. They are supposed to. The maladministration of the successive government, is it the handwork of the poor masses? Are we the one in the administration? No.
All right.
So we should not be the one that will continue to suffer all these, past and successive maladministration of those democratically elected governments.
Well, thank you so much for your submission there, Mrs. Sessi. Let me turn to you, Mr. Oguntuase, and ask you, is the telecom operators in their right do they make a valid case for rising the tariffs? I mean, because this has been almost a decade-long journey for them asking for a tariff increment. They've asked for this repeatedly, consecutively for almost a decade. And considering the maybe the rising cost of living crisis that we found ourselves and the dollar to naira exchange, do they have a valid case for rising it at 50% at this point?
Okay, thanks so much. That's a very good question. Now, whether they have a valid case or not, I think it behooves them to justify the increase. That's very important. Now, what they are saying is that there has been increase in operational costs as a result of high level of inflation, and also they're also looking at the issue of currency devaluation, which has also plagued them. Now, I'm not trying to make a case for them, but if we consider the reason they are adducing for this increase, it is nothing that relates to them at all. For example, if we take the issue of operational cost. Now, the issue of operational cost cannot be separated from inflation. The issue of operational cost that they're experiencing cannot be separated from currency devaluation. Now, we need to understand the fact that even these telecom operators, they're also servicing Nigerians abroad that are still using, their operations, so to speak. So those are the things that needs to be put into focal consideration. But again, beyond this, this, I think they need to come out, like I said earlier, to practically justify it. And when I say practically justify it, I mean they need to show evidence, come out with figures, come out with amount that shows that if this thing is not done, then they are practically going to go under the drains. Nigerians are not stupid and Nigerians are not dunce. Everybody is experiencing this increase in inflation, which is now at double digits, and the increase in the increase in the living cost. So I believe that what the telco operators need to do now is to come out. And again, there is nothing preventing them in not calling Nigerian Labour Congress to a roundtable meeting at this juncture. There's nothing preventing them from not calling Nigerian Labour Congress to a roundtable meeting so that they can seek audience with them. I'm not saying that the 50% increase that they've done is justifiable, and I'm not saying it's not justifiable. But one thing remains sacrosanct. In fact, the position of the law is that he who has sat needs to prove. So they are the ones that is saying that they faced increase as a result of inflation and as a result of operational cost and as a result of currency devaluation. So what I will advise them to do in order to show Nigerians that truly there should be increase is to come out and show it. Now, the representative from Nigerian Labour sector had said that looking at their balance sheet that they've been recording profit. Again, those are the things that needs to be properly placed on the table. If there is any evidence that they've been making profit over the years, they need to come out and show it. If the Nigerian Labour Congress feels that they've been making, the telco operators have been making profit over the years, it's not by word of mouth. These are facts that needs to be properly substantiated so that everybody can understand whether there is a need for an increase or not. And to a very great extent, that's when I think that the issue of protest on the part of NLC can now be justifiable. Because if we look at it, and as a lawyer I speak, the Nigerian Labour Congress can picket, of course, is part of their right, is contained in the Trade Dispute Act as a result of trade dispute. They can picket and they can also go on strike. But all these things must be done in due consideration of the law, and they should also consider the interest of the Nigerian citizens as well. So if they claim that they are protecting the interest of the Nigerian citizens, I also believe that there is always opportunity to be heard, and I don't believe in hearsay. If there is a proper meeting, a proper deliberation between the Nigerian Labour Congress and the telco operators, and the Nigerian Labour Congress now feels that, okay, after proper deliberation, we still do not feel justified by the 50% increase because of A, B, C, and D, then the Nigerian populace will see reasons with them and people will support them. It's not, with all due respect, it's not just calling for support, but let it be shown that there is no justification in this increase. That's my position.
Mrs. Sessi, I'd like to come to you with a very interesting note here. Now, I'm wondering what the NLC has done in terms of research when it comes to what obtains in other climes in the world. Oguntuase here has just highlighted the problems that the telcos have to deal with when it comes to giving us service. There's increase in costs. They have to fend for themselves, their power generation and all of that. And of course, things have escalated in the past decade since we had a price hike. However, if you were to take a look at what obtains in other climes, you'd find out that we actually pay less when it comes to telco tariffs than other nations like in the UK or even in the US. So based on that, are we absolutely sure that we are giving a proper benchmark for the telcos when we say they must reduce that tariff hike, total reversal? Are we being fair on the telcos?
Thank you very much. The other speaker, Mr. Oguntuase Barrister, he has just said some of the things that actually are supposed to happen. We're supposed to be on the table where education is key and is power. Once you allow everybody to know and to understand, and it doesn't seem like you are just trying, to bring up some situation in which we believe that you are adding more to our pain. NLC has taken the pain to also make some, verification and compare notes with, with other labor in other climes and other, countries. And we believe, and that is why we are coming out to come and fight for Nigerians. This time it's not about minimum wage or about ourselves. It's about the whole Nigerian that we have come out. And we are saying it that come and show us all the your papers and everything. And let us sit down and let us dialogue, let us discuss. Let us see whether you are justified with any increase at all. Even if there is going to be an increase, must it be 50% at once? We have to see the situation. You have been posting huge profit over the year. How can it now be this year that those huge profits has been eaten up totally by the situation? If we also have to equate Nigeria with America, with United Kingdom, it cannot work because our money is not the same. That's our currency is different. And our currency is, we know what our currency means amongst the committee of other countries. Our currency is nothing to write home about. And it depends on the currency of that country where you are doing your trade. And that is why we are saying it to our those who are representing us at the assembly, that anybody doing their trade in this country, they should do it based on our currency. It's because they are also now tying it to foreign currency. That is why they are now saying that they are not making enough profit, or they are not making profit. They are doing their business here, tying their businesses to dollar rates. It cannot work. Are they tying their business in South Africa to dollar rate? Are they tying it in South Africa to dollar rate? Why are they tying their businesses to dollar rates in Nigeria? So whatever the situation is, the Nigerians are always at the receiving end of negative policies and anti-people's policies.
All right.
And we cannot fold our arms and pretend that all is well, even when we know that all is not well. That is the situation where we are. Don't shave our head at our back. Bring everybody to the table. National Orientation Agency, you have a whole lot of work to do.
Right.
You are supposed to conduct a survey from Nigerians and see and make our voices to count even before you bring up any tax, any increase or whatever in this country. That is where we are.
Many thanks, Mrs. Sessi, for that. Let me come to Mr. Oguntuase and ask. It's very clear from Mrs. Sessi's stance that there's no going back on this, morning strike or this protest or this picketing. I'll leave it at picketing for now. Then what then will be an alternative approach to this for all sides to come to the table? What could be an alternative measure? Is it a government intervention? Is it a subsidy, even though I hate that term? What then can be done so that, the labor unions don't go on the streets?
Okay, so it's a very good question. I think what the government can do is that the government can hijack the protests. And when I say the government can hijack the protest, what I mean, I'm not suggesting anything criminal or anything forceful, excessive or arbitrary, no. Because I also recognize the fact that pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution that talks about freedom of expression, and Section 3 and 4 of the Trade Dispute Act, of course, the NLC are well within their right to protest. But I'm talking about hijacking. If the Minister of Labour and the Minister of Communication calls the NLC president to a roundtable discussion and says, suspend this protest. I know you have a right to protest, suspend this protest, and also call the stakeholders in the telecommunications industry to join this meeting. I believe that the NLC are going to suspend the protest. Now, the reason I'm saying that is this. We just need to find a more creative way at resolving trade disputes. The conventional way of picketing, of going on strike, they've not favored us over time. Now, in this regime, how many times have the Nigerian Labour Congress had gone on strike and to what extent have they been able to realize the purpose in which they go on strike? I believe that if you want to adopt a procedure, you should analyze that procedure, analyze that strategy in the light of you've used that strategy over time. You know, how productive the strategy has been. So how productive picketing has been, how productive strike has been. For me, and with all due respect to the representative of the Nigerian Labour Congress, I don't think those two strategies have been extremely productive as they were. In fact, if I may recommend now, I would recommend that compulsorily in the Trade Dispute Act, in the Labour Act, I would recommend that compulsorily before the representative of Labour proceed to protest, there shall be mediation. There shall be a sort of negotiation between the two parties. And there is a semblance of that provision in the Trade Dispute Act. So I also think, with all due respect, that the Nigerian Labour Congress should also avail themselves of the clear provisions of the Trade Dispute Act, because these provisions are what regulate their actions. Now, like I said, I validated their protest, but to what extent are they going to achieve this? They will come out and protest. This is not the first time they will be doing it. This is not the second time. This is not the third time. And I've told you, Nigerians are not dumb. They are not stupid. And that's why you see that some of the Nigerians are supporting this proposed increase in the telco tariff. But again, there is also possibility, or there are possibilities that the telco may also use it for their own advantage. And that's why I support a roundtable discussion, that everything will be discussed, the meeting will be televised, and there will be time paper for the meeting as to reveal what the parties agree on. Is this not more creative than just going around protesting? For me, I think it is. And I think at this juncture, that is what the federal government should do.
Ireoluwa, may I ask once again regarding the efforts the federal government can put in to help the situation? Do you think that adjusting the policies, removal of taxes for the telcos could help the situation whereby the tariffs are not hiked, but they have a better environment?
No.
Do you think this is an option so that the bulk of the cost is not passed on to the consumer? Ireoluwa, what do you think? Yeah. Is this possible, is the question. Do you think that this is possible? Because Mrs. Sessi noted a factor here where she talked about the fact that the monies are being repatriated back to countries and in fact it's being benched across the dollar. So if we remove all of these little niggling issues, do you think that it will help the situation?
Of course it will. I totally believe that it's going to, because I said earlier, I said that the reason the telcos are proposing for increasing the tariff, it is not unconnected with what is happening in the country currently. Now, we need to understand that the telcos are also employers of labor. They pay salary, they incur expenses in order to ensure that we enjoy this thing. I'm not justifying them, and I'm not validating the reason they want to increase. But if the government, like you rightly said, can also do something in order to make the business environment convenient for them, I think that's a proper way we need to put it. And in making the business environment convenient for them, the government should also call them and ask them, what are the challenges that you're facing in this environment that is now enabling you, that is pushing you to say that you want to increase the tariff? And for all these things, but you recall that I'd already identified inflation, and I already identified currency devaluation. Now, those things are challenges that government may not be able to solve, because inflation is general. It affects everything. So it may not be what the government can solve at the moment, but there should also be cushion. And another thing the government can do is probably to propose suspension. Give us like 3-4 months in order to see whether we can find a solution to this issue. If we cannot find a solution to this issue, then that may now justify the increase. I think that's another thing the government can do. But generally, I feel that making the business environment convenient for the telcos would also reduce or stem the tide of this push for an increase in telecommunication tariff.
Okay, then. Well, Mr. Oguntuase and Mrs. Sessi, we would like to say thank you both for actually joining us this morning to give us your bits on the issue here. We hope that this is resolved so that we can all make better calls and, of course, cheaper ones as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady.
Thank you very much for having us here.
Thanks so much.
And we urge
Thank you.
Nigerians to join us
I'm going to church now, and I will
join
pray
us on February 4th.
that the Nigerian Labour Congress didn't protest, and that telcos also, they should also reduce their tariff. Because I cannot be buying 10,000 for a scheme to the voice of NLC for something that is very true. I'm going to church now to pray that God should please help us.
They have tried so that they can negotiate and dialogue with us. But when it fails, we use the instrument that we have. And that instrument, this is the set of the instrument before we go on total blackout.
Okay.
Shut down. Thank you.
Shut down communications. Thank you very much.